Well, it's nearly 3 a.m. and we're about to get on buses to go to the airport to go to our flight to Ushuaia. I am 7,000 miles from my office and I like it here. As we all assembled in the lobby of the Hotel Emperador in Buenos Aires, there was a lot of excitement. In this rainy pre-dawn, we were headed to the airport to fly to Ushuaia and then to go to Antarctica. Our expedition cruise line had chartered JetSmart Airlines to carry us down to Ushuaia. This was not an airline I knew, it was a discount airline. It was fine. And although the flight is 3 not completely comfortable hours, when you arrive, you get some great views. Upon landing, we were off to the buses to see Argentina's side of Patagonia. I suppose you would say this marked the start of our Highlights of Antarctica cruise. This was an expedition cruise with Hurtigruten, which is now thankfully called HX because I don't think Hurtigruten is at all like the way they say it.
To the White Continent, is that when you go today night?
Although it wasn't time to board, we got a first glimpse of the ship.
One side, yeah, the city, and to the other side, the port. So many bonfires, yeah, and columns opening from the natives. We have to start eating different.
For now, though, we were heading out of town with the promise of spectacular Patagonian views. And almost immediately, we got them. I would say the majority of people who were going to board the ship later that day had gone on this trip, and so there were a number of buses involved. This was the only time it ever felt a little crowded.
We opened the ski season, yeah?
Now, this part of Argentina is genuinely spectacular, but here's the problem. At this point, we were all excited to see the ship and to think about the expedition we were about to go on. So while I probably didn't pay as much attention to this as I should have at the time, I'm really glad I have some videos of it. The southernmost tip of Argentina is a deserving destination in and of itself. By mid-afternoon, we headed back into town and back toward the ship. But this time, we would go to the ship.
Yet to see the lighthouse once they pop.
We would be boarding the Fridtjof Nansen, which throughout this video will be referred to as the ship because I'm sure I butchered that name too. I don't speak Norwegian. So let's take a look at the cabin that would be home for the next 10 days. That cabin will do just fine. It was very comfortable. As it wasn't quite time for sail away, I decided to have a look around the rest of the ship as well. This started by seeing the spectacular views of Ushuaia from on board. At the stern was an infinity pool and also a hot tub. Then came the main dining area, but wait just a minute. That's the Aun restaurant, and that was the general alarm. And then, without a whole bunch of fanfare, we were underway. With my wife fast asleep in the cabin, I went to the Fredheim restaurant to enjoy the view. I also enjoyed the selection of dumplings and, of course, the beer. It turned out to be a great alternative place to eat. The food was really good, and you didn't need reservations. And then, of course, there was the view. We were heading out through the Beagle Canal, and that meant that by morning we should be in the Drake Passage. I'd seen the videos, I knew what was possible once we got there, and so it was going to be a very interesting morning.
It really is.
And now we are in the Drake Passage. And here is that morning. Now, knowing we had to pass back through it to return from Antarctica, I didn't want to tempt fate, but this wasn't bad at all. You've probably heard you get either the Drake Shake or the Drake Lake. This was the Drake Lake, very calm.
We're going to do landings, which means that we take you to the Zodiac on shore, where you will get an area where you can free roam.
The first full morning on the ship featured these briefings on what to expect once we reached Antarctica. It covered everything from how to get in and out of the Zodiacs to penguin etiquette. Over the course of the day, I kept my eye on the Drake Passage. Still pretty calm. But the entire day was going to be a sea day, so we headed up to the Explorer Lounge, the very comfortable area for gatherings. In that lounge is a full bar where you can also get freshly made coffees. You can then enjoy in the very comfortable seating. Now let's take a closer look at the science room. Before you're actually on board, you might think that the whole idea of actual science being done on the ship is a little gimmicky. But no, it's real. They're really doing things. And the scientists on board will involve the passengers in their work. I didn't sign up for that, but kind of wish I had in retrospect. As the day went on, the skies got a little rainier and the sea got a little rougher, but even now, even at this point, this was nothing much at all. This wasn't my first cruise, but I'm also no championship mariner, so the fact that the seas didn't bother me at all should give you great hope that if you get the Drake Lake, you're going to be just fine. That night, in the main dining room, there was a lovely roast beef. I'll just spoil it now and say the food was uniformly good wherever we went and whenever we went. Before retiring for the night, I got this screenshot of where we were. The Drake Passage takes a day and a half to 2 days to cross, and so we weren't quite done with it. So the next morning, I took a look out the window and was pleased to see things were still pretty calm. I think we were going to have the Drake Lake the whole way. Well, okay, it did get a little bit choppy, but really, it was not much of a much. Some say a pirate's earring was proof of his safe passage through the Drake. If that's true, then I was earning mine the easy way.
For attending. I know you didn't have a choice. You will have to
As Antarctica was growing closer, we had more briefings. They were serious about us doing no damage either to the wildlife or to the continent of Antarctica.
First 2 days.
And then, just after noon, we started to see icebergs. Stuff was really getting real at this point. Time to get ready. A major part of getting ready was getting your gear ready. And in order to get your gear ready, you had to make sure that you didn't have any spores or seeds or anything that couldn't be taken onto the continent. Therefore, you vacuumed your clothes. And as the day progressed, more people were outside looking to see what they could see. And washy, it's time for dinner. Once again, we had a very nice one. Toward the end of each day, there was a briefing on not only what you had done that day, but also on what you would be doing the next day.
One of the highlights is, of course, the boot handout.
This is where you got a lot of good information, and it really is a good idea to attend as many as you can.
Start getting ready to go outside your cabin at around 10 minutes to 8, and then you can have your jacket in hand and your life jacket.
Before any excursions could go forward, the crew went out in the Zodiacs to make sure that it would be both safe and practical. And then the first groups were on their way. Passengers had been assigned a particular type of whale as their group name. We were orcas, and you waited until your group was called to go out in the Zodiacs. It was a very efficient system, and it also helped make sure that they could comply with the regulations about how many people could be on the continent at any given time. And then it was our turn to go out among the ice floes in one of the Zodiacs. To me, one of the major draws of this entire trip was how quiet Antarctica is. And so a lot of times I'm just not going to narrate. I want you to hear what it sounded like to us.
And then the back of it was once. It's like it's kind of not real.
That afternoon, the agenda changed just a bit. We'd be going out on the Zodiacs again, only this time we'd be making a landing. From aboard the ship, we could see the expedition crews getting ready for the kayakers, and more excitingly for us, we could see as they prepared the landing site. On any given cruise, the landing site will be dictated by a number of factors: the weather, safety, and even accessibility to some degree. They wouldn't land a group on sheer ice, although this particular day we came kind of close to that. As I watched the operations, I wanted it to be my turn more and more. And then, finally, it was my turn.
I'm in Antarctica.
It really is a special feeling the first time you're standing on land in Antarctica. Turns out this wasn't even the continent, that was the next day. But still, it's Antarctica. This was also the first time being right up with the penguins. These were Gentoo penguins. And they make a lot of funny noises, and by the way, they smell bad. But let's just listen for a little while.
Hey, penguin. Psst, 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 psst.
That didn't really work. It's easy to imagine the penguins are playing, but really they're just doing their thing. That brownish discoloration is exactly what you think it is. Anytime a path for humans and a path for penguins crosses, the penguins have right of way. You have to stay away. And that's true no matter how much it looks like this little fellow wants to be hugged. On these landings, your time ashore will be something like an hour to an hour and a half. The expedition team has to balance making sure everyone gets a turn on land and maximizing everyone's chance to really have a great experience. I always felt the HX team did a great job with this balance.
Hello?
That evening we passed through another area of unbelievable tranquility and beauty. You could experience this from both outside and inside, and after a while inside became the better choice. Throughout the cruise I would tend to go outside, pop back inside to warm up, and then go outside again. I just wanted to be in the surroundings. In keeping with not over-describing the food, this steak was well prepared and good, and the dessert was lovely. And even at night, there were some amazing things to see. The next morning, we were treated to sunshine and some unbelievable views. mean, that has to be fake, right? And the view you're seeing right now is our view from our breakfast table. Since we're here, let's talk about breakfast. On an HX cruise, you can order an omelet or you can go to the buffet, and there's pretty good offerings on the buffet. And this is as good a time as any to talk about the onboard store as well. Everything about it is small except the prices. If you're looking for branded merchandise or something really special, perhaps a gift that really tells you you've been to Antarctica, this is the place. I found it the best place to use up my onboard credit that my travel consultant had secured for me. On the Nansen, it's just across from reception. As the gorgeous sunny weather continued through the morning, we continued to look at the views. You could find yourself a seat in the Explorer's Lounge with easy access to beverages, but I tended to wander around a bit more. The crew set out to see if landings would be possible. The ice fields might complicate things for Zodiac boats, but they sure didn't bother penguins. Well, everything looks good. We're gonna make a landing. It really doesn't take long to get used to boarding or riding in a Zodiac. And my goodness, here we are with tons of Gen 2 penguins. There is a rule that you must maintain 5 meters between yourself and the penguins. Nobody tells the penguins, so it's entirely up to you to move. And as you can see here, sometimes they sneak up on you when you're doing something else. Though some folks chose to climb up and get a different angle on things, I was content to hang out with the penguins near the landing site.
did it. I never went up to it.
The Zodiacs come and go regularly, so you can leave whenever you want to. I wasn't ready to leave yet. Though the phrase once in a lifetime is probably overused most places, it really means something in Antarctica.
They just don't have to hear that I can see.
No, you did not. Oh, now let's go.
Of course, eventually you do have to go back to the ship. Consider the alternative. Staying behind would be a really dumb idea. But on HX, on nice days like this one, you get both a landing and a Zodiac ride. And so, not long after the landing, we were back to the Zodiacs for our cruise around the area. And even though the weather was taking a little bit of a turn for the worse, it was still beautiful. At this point, we came upon a lone seal. Our guide was diligent in trying to get us a good angle for taking photos of the seal.
Seal. Hey, seal.
Neither he nor I could get the seal to pose, though. Now, there are, thankfully, limits on how many people can go ashore at any given time in Antarctica, so when we had landed, they cruised. Now that we were cruising, they landed. In either location, though, keep your eyes out for penguins. Once again, back to the ship after a day of really great sightseeing. Of course, the views at night are not too shabby either. Well, the next morning is looking a little bit different for us. Yep, that's snow. And that's fog. And that's cold rain on the windows. From what I could tell, HX works really hard so that everyone gets all of their excursions. We were just going to have to wait to see what happened. On board, there's usually some sort of enrichment exercise underway, so we went to this lecture.
Made by our expedition team leader there, Ramiro. Only going in December because I so want to go to see this place.
I might.
Then, with coffee and camera at the ready, we just sort of hung out. That is, until the whales started showing up. Things had cleared up enough that we were back on schedule, and there was a special activity today.
Well, I may regret it, but I'm going to try to do the polar plunge.
That's right, the dreaded polar plunge. Now on HX they do it a little bit differently than on some other ships. You actually go ashore and then wade into the water. And that's hard, because there's plenty of time to chicken out. This is the landing site, this is the polar plunge site, and there's the lifeguard for the polar plunge. You know what, we should go look at some penguins first.
You need to be 5 meters.
This formidable penguin gang was coming to throw me in the water if I didn't go voluntarily, though, so it was just about time. So one of the landing site folks will take a video for you of your getting out and doing the polar plunge. And keeping in mind I'm a 66-year-old sedentary guy, here we go.
What do you think?
I earned this coffee and this certificate. Come to think of it, I probably earned this dinner too, but really anybody could have had it. As dusk fell, I enjoyed my look outside the ship. One thing you find out about excursion ships is that by about 11 o'clock everybody's in bed, everybody's really tired, but it makes for a great time to have a look around the ship. So while others dream of their plans for tomorrow, let's take a walk. This is the science room where the expedition crew often met. This will give you a look at the grand atrium in the middle of the ship. It features a screen about 5 stories tall. It was impossible to get it all in one camera shot. On the lowest deck accessible to passengers was the expedition launch and also the medical center, sick bay if you will. Each cabin contained a refillable water bottle for each passenger, and here's where you could fill them. On the top deck, out past the sauna, passengers could use either of the 2 hot tubs or the infinity swimming pool. We didn't use them. There are helpful information screens throughout the entire ship. And we've seen the Explorer Lounge a couple of times before, but this is what it looks like when it's all mine. Okay, time for bed. By now you sort of know the drill. We are in a new location, and the expedition team checked the site for safety and for viability of excursions. And our morning Zodiac trip was a go. And today we would see some seals. Antarctica has several different types of seals, and to my great shame, I do not recall what kind these are. If you know, leave me a comment. I'll feel less dumb. In the overcast, it felt colder on this day. This is a good spot to mention as an aside that the Zodiacs go out in pairs. So if, something happens to one of them, wait a minute, that's a whale. On the way to see the penguins, we saw the orcas. So about now, we were keeping our eyes peeled for whales while going to see a different type of penguin. Those are chin strap penguins because they have a chin strap. Seriously, there's a little black line that goes right under their face. Watching the penguins swim is pretty entertaining. But at this point, we found ourselves nearly on top of a whale. Excuse me, make that 2 whales. I've seen Zodiacs get closer, but I mean, come on, this is pretty great. And in case you're one of those people that thinks it doesn't count unless you get to see the tail come up from out of the water.
There we go.
Back on board, having lunch, and looking out the window.
Good spotting. Look at the size of the window. Come on, show it. Show it! Here it comes. Yeah! Whoa. Oh, guys. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh my god. Oh my god, I have my own tail.
So I guess now you see what I mean about the whale tail. Anyway, to think you can just sit aboard the ship, maybe enjoy your lunch, and watch for whales breaching the surface, I don't know, that's just kind of crazy. And since the crew were out there anyway, you can't really blame them for trying to get a good look. Surely this never gets old. Antarctic expedition cruises don't promise you're going to see any particular animal in any particular location, but when it comes to orcas, the odds are in your favor.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we'd been warned on this day that this would be the day the weather got a little bit iffier, and it did. But at worst, that just meant we would be watching the whales from a different location, perhaps the Explorer Lounge. Before the day was over, we encountered this surprise. It turned out to be a charter sailing ship. The next morning started the day that turned out to be the day the weather finally got us. This was to be our time at Deception Island. Now, Deception Island is a volcanic caldera, and it turns out that it's an active volcano. I'm sure I'm showing the hot tub just as a coincidence. The fact that it's an active volcano was not really of any consequence, but the fact that the weather was getting worse, well, you'll see. Sailing into the caldera would take us to an old whaling station. And as you can tell from the map, the sailing would be pretty dramatic. That is, if we could see it. Well, here is what my view ended up being from the port side of the Explorer Lounge. And here's the view from out on the deck starboard side. We had made it in and the Zodiacs were checking the landing sites. All systems appeared to be go, notwithstanding the weather. We could tell from the information screens that we had reached our destination, and we could look out the window and see the old whaling station. However,
Operations for the rest of the day today, including the landing and science boat, is cancelled due to the weather conditions.
so that was that. Now, as a part of getting ready to go to Antarctica, you spend a lot of time getting ready, reading about how any particular excursion, any particular landing point may have to be canceled for weather. So we couldn't claim that this was a complete shock. Still a little disappointing though. So alright then, if the main event's going to be coming in and out of the caldera, let's take a look at leaving the caldera. Insert your own "Goodbye Deception Island, you tricked me" joke here. Our rather hurried departure from Deception Island did not bode well for the Drake Passage. And indeed, in the Explorer's Lounge, there was a little bit of that old up and down motion you get. It was back out to open sea for us. Nothing looked especially ferocious quite yet, but first we got this notice, and then indeed the crew came around and secured everything on the balcony. And the ocean was getting a little bit angrier. But if there's going to be a dramatic sea day, there's no better time to have a bridge tour. Now personally, I think bridge tours are really interesting, and I was very pleased that we had the opportunity to have one on this cruise. You don't always get one. And while there's a whole lot of equipment that you won't even have the first clue on how to operate, you come away with better peace of mind that this is an amazingly safe, high-tech ship. Meanwhile, outside, we were finding ourselves in a little bit of a storm. And then it was time to learn the process for disembarking the ship. Everything was organized, well planned out, and ultimately easy. That night was dinner in the Drake Passage, very dramatic to look at, and a good dinner. So that was 3 out of 4 days in the Drake Passage without too much happening. How about the next morning? Yes, how about the next morning? I mean, come on, guys. I know I shouldn't complain, but take a look. That's it. That was our last day on the Drake Passage. Shortly after lunch, it was land ho, and back into the Beagle Channel we went. The return to Ushuaia goes through some incredibly beautiful areas. I guess it would be fair to say that they don't seem to be quite as amazing as they would be if you hadn't just been to Antarctica, but if you judge them on their own, this is pretty spectacular. As is probably traditional, we gathered that last afternoon for a farewell speech and toast from the captain. Now that the crew has said farewell, let's take a look at the rest of the sail into Ushuaia. Now this is pretty cool when you sail into Ushuaia. Look at all the mountains around it and the clouds, and well, it just looks neat. By the time we were in port, it was getting dark. It was definitely cold and windy, but some of us decided that we would go into town that night, and I was one of them. Now, as you'll see, as it turned out, they did arrange for everyone to get a chance to spend some time in town, but I wasn't sure that was going to happen, and I sure wasn't going to miss this opportunity. But the thing is, I'd already had my included dinner, so I wasn't looking for a place to eat. A lot of the shops were beginning to close, so I did what I do anytime I go to a place like this. I bought a t-shirt and headed back to the ship. There were some great views of the ship from the shore, though. This is the view from our ship balcony of Ushuaia at night. And this is the view from our ship balcony of Ushuaia the next dawn. Our departure morning had arrived. 10 days after we had flown into Ushuaia, we would be flying back out of it. But a lot had happened in those 10 days, that's for sure. As we departed for our buses, we got one last look at the ship from up close. It had been good to us.
Hi guys, good
Now, there was
morning.
just enough time between when we left the ship and when we needed to be at the airport that we were able to spend about an hour in town itself. Although, as I showed you, some of us had wandered in the night before, most people had not afforded themselves of that opportunity. And since Antarctica proper doesn't have gift shops, Ushuaia basically serves that purpose. This is where you can get your mementos and memories. It's also a pretty nifty little town. But now, alas, our time in the southernmost city in the world was coming to an end. We were headed for the airport.
On the way to the airplane. So
I will say the departure process was a little bit slower than I expected, but basically came off without a hitch. And back aboard JetSmart. At this point in your trip, I imagine everyone thinks two things, or at least I did. The first is, wow, what an incredible experience this has been. Going to Antarctica, crossing the Drake Passage, seeing penguins where they live, seeing Tierra del Fuego. If you're the sort of person who has a bucket list, well, it's time to add something. And the second thought, when can I come back? And as our charter jet lands back in Buenos Aires, I suggest that if you liked the video, it would be great if you would say so here on YouTube and maybe even subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. Thank you and bye.